Hi, this is Les Levine, the self-proclaimed voice of truth and reason in Ohio sports. I went to a press conference today at Cleveland State where they introduced the new basketball coach, Dennis Gates, who came here after 8 years assisting Leonard Hamilton at Florida State. As the radio or TV voice for the Vikings for 23 seasons, I've been to a lot of those. I inherited Ray Derringer. Then there was Kevin Mackey when we were told that he'd get you to the NCAA tournament in 3 years and on NCAA probation in 4. We were also told the way to go is hiring big-time assistants. Mackey was from Boston College. Then there was Mike Boyd from Michigan. Then Rollie Massimino, who won a title in 1985 with Villanova. Then we got Mike Garland, Tom Izzo's assistant at Michigan State. Gary Waters was a head coach at Kent State and Rutgers before having some success at CSU before retiring. And then Dennis Felton, who had no chance after coming here as head coach at Georgia. As of now, the cupboard is bare as far as players are concerned. Several CSU players have gone into the senior portal, although some could return. Gates has a 5-year deal at about $300,000 a year. He's going to need all of it. We've got Jake Burns here. We're going to talk the Cleveland Browns today. They're still out in Berea. More Sports and Les Levine starts right now. From the worldwide headquarters of More Sports and Les Levine, it's a Tuesday night. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to More Sports and Les Levine into its 23rd consecutive year, soon to be 24th, and seen exclusively here on cleveland.com. The chair is empty. That doesn't mean we don't have a guest. Jake Burns is with us. He's the cleveland.com film room correspondent. We'll find out, well, wait a minute. We'll find out what kind of films he's been watching. So stick around for that. Also, lots of Indians talk, less than 24 hours away from the deadline, the trade deadline, which is tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Good news as far as danny-salazar is concerned. We think it is anyway. He's going to be the starting pitcher on Thursday night against the Houston Astros. And Plutko is going to be available if needed if they have to go to a shortened game. And Salazar was terrific. He pitched 4 innings at Columbus the other day. 1 hit, no earned runs, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, 69 pitches. That was on Saturday in his rehab start at Columbus. So there you see him coming off. He wants to be a starter. He doesn't want to come out of the bullpen. Of course, he may not have a choice if that's what Terry Francona decides to do, depending on what happens trade-wise over the next 23 hours. Indians still exploring some potential trade options. One of them, Domingo-Santana, but you're looking right there at danny-salazar. His last 2 starts at Columbus, July 21st and the 27th, 3 1/3 innings pitched at the top one, 4 innings pitched at the bottom, and he hasn't given up in many hits, only 4 hits given up, and he threw 64 pitches game 1 and 69 yesterday. Apparently the pitch count, if all goes well on Thursday when he pitches against Houston, would be in the range of about 80. So they'll see how that will go. So they are exploring some other opportunities or potential trades, and some interesting names have popped up in the last couple of days. Domingo-Santana is one of them. He's 26 years old, 6 major league season with Seattle right now. Hit .273 so far this year. His career average is .264, and he had a career high of 30 home runs in 2017. That was with the Milwaukee Brewers. Also, the guy you hear a lot about when he was with the Dodgers, and now he's with the Reds, and that's Yasiel-Puig, who is 28 years old, 7th major league season. Not a very good defender, although he has a great arm. Hitting .255 this year with 22 homers and 60 RBIs. His career average .276, and he has a total of 130 major league home runs. He made the All-Star team in 2014 back with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Nick-Castellanos is one we've heard quite a bit about. Good power hitter, 27 years old, not a very good defender, but like Puig, has a good arm. He's in his 7th major league season, hitting .273 this year, 11 homers and 37 RBIs in 99 games. He's leading the American League in doubles, however, and his career high 26 home runs, 101 RBIs. That all took place in 2017. Justin-Smoak has been added to that list. He's a switch hitter. mostly a first baseman, but also a DH, 32 years old, free agent at the end of this year. This year hitting just .215, but he has 18 homers and 46 RBIs in 86 games for the Toronto Blue Jays. His career average .232. He's hit 187 career home runs and 540 RBIs, a career high of .270 batting average, 38 home runs and 90 RBIs. That also was in 2017 with the Toronto Blue Jays, and he made an all-star appearance that day. We have a question of the week. We'll get to that in a moment. We've added Todd-Frazier. This just in. Todd-Frazier now with the Mets, .246 batting average, 14 homers, 41 RBIs in 81 games, .242 career average. He's hit 207 home runs, two-time All-Star in 2014 and 2015, and that was with the Cincinnati Reds. So there you have it. We'll keep you updated if anything pops during this show, but we're also going to be talking to Jake Burns in our next segment. He's the cleveland.com film room correspondent. We'll find out what's going on in Berea. They had the off day today, and they'll get back at it tomorrow. We have a Facebook question of the day, and that is, other than Trevor Bauer, who would you be willing to give up from the Indians in order to make a strong trade? All right, Mark Jelisek says, who actually would anybody want other than one of the young starters or Hand? You might be able to package someone like Mercado and Naquin with Bauer, but they're both cheap help, so the Tribe certainly wouldn't. I would doubt that the Tribe would move them. Whoever I trade Bauer to, I'd insist they take Bauer's off my hands also. Eric Eglin, he says Hand. Kevin Malone, if they can get Torres from the Yankees, they can let him go, but they'll just have to buy someone else to take his place. Would it be Lindor? They have Didi and LeMahieu as suitable backups. Tim Gebhardt says they've sliced an 11-game deficit all the way down to just 2 games. I'd stay pat right now and let it play itself out. So Tim would know stuff like that. He's a terrific guy in this silly business that we work in. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/more-sports-and-les-levine with new content posted each and every day. We also have the voicemail of Truth and Reason, and that means you can call us anytime. We're on from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. But if you'd like to get in, you could do that any other of the 23 hours. You can leave a message. Call anytime at 216-200-6650. That's 216-200-6650. It's the voicemail of Truth and Reason. When we come back, Jake Burns will join us. We'll talk some Cleveland Browns. If you have something you'd like to say about the Browns or the Indians for that matter, give us a call right now, 216-575-0403. Or during the show, of course, you can email us at reallesLevine@gmail.com. We'll take a break. More Sports and Les Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program has been recognizing role model students and teachers since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Supporting Education. There, you can nominate students in kindergarten through 12th grade as academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible for the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
All right, today is the 30th of July. Some celebrating, some commemorating. Joe Nuxall, of course, great pitcher in the National League with the Reds and a longtime announcer, did a tremendous job, always entertaining. He was born in 1928. Galen Fisk just died within the last couple of months, the linebacker for the Browns. Boy, aren't those classic uniforms? That's the way, hopefully next year, that's what those uniforms will look like. Galen Fisk made one of the big plays in the win in 1964's championship against the Baltimore Colts. He caught Lenny Moore in the backfield, and that stopped the drive. Bud Selig, the former commissioner, Vic Davalillo. Ty Game was born in 1947, and Chris Mullen, great college career and pro career for that matter. Not such a great GM in the NBA. 216-575-0403. Let's check this date in sports history. July 30th, 1968, Washington shortstop Ron Hansen pulls off an unassisted triple play against the Cleveland Indians at Municipal Stadium. Tribe won the game by a score of 10-1. So could have been a lot worse if they didn't make the triple play, no question about that. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. We welcome in Jake Burns from cleveland.com. He is the film room correspondent. Jake, how are you?
I'm great, Les. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. Tell me what the film room correspondent for cleveland.com actually does.
Watch a lot of tape, as much as that sounds. You're gonna spend a lot of time with what's called NFL Game Pass, which is where all the games are recorded. The NFL is really lucky and makes us fortunate being able to view all the games and all the different angles, such as the all 22. You can see high vantage points and behind in the end zone. And so I'm looking at all of that, the trends, what the Browns are doing for success or what other teams are doing that are causing them fits, and trying to teach the average fan about how football works from an X and O standpoint.
Well, you talk about the average fan, and you're absolutely right. The average fan has no clue about it. And we first heard, this is ancient history now, we first heard about the coach's tape, whatever that was, and we thought, well, that's the end-all, be-all. You'll never get better than that, but apparently that's not the case.
Yeah, that's right. They're making what is available, or used to be just available for coaches, available to public, and really there's been a nice form of the public that has done a nice job providing this insight for fans to, when you're around the water cooler at work or when you're with your family, having an understanding for how that touchdown Baker Mayfield threw came together, or, something that happened that was, caused a big uproar or was debatable, something along those lines. You can get some perspective on why the coaches made a decision or why the players made a decision to do, a certain thing on the field.
Do you think we could get a coach's tape of the studio here to see exactly what I'm doing at all times and break it down a little bit?
Oh, yeah, we can set up a third angle. We'll just split the screen one more time.
All right, very good. All right, the NFL Network has rated the top 100 players, and I think when you get into ratings like that, Jake, and maybe you can help me out on this, that sometimes they come up with the answer first and then they work their way back to it. Am I correct that possibly happens sometimes?
I would think that you're absolutely correct. So it's just tough because those things are so subjective. They rely on player ratings, and sometimes players can vote for their friends and things of that nature. So I know that myles-Garrett came 49, Baker came 50, and Odell Beckham came 23rd. It was just a matter of those guys are within the positions. I think they rank players within the positions, and then they sort of let them tier out based on who's the most dominant within their position. So, it doesn't surprise me where the Browns are ranked. It's great for them to have 4 players in the top 100. It's been a significant amount of time since they've had that. But they're arbitrary ratings. Doesn't mean the players don't pay attention to them. I know myles-Garrett was pretty vocal on Twitter about this is the lowest he'll ever be in the coming years. And I do expect that the top 3 names there are names that could absolutely jump up the list too. And Jarvis-Landry could have a bounce back year. The Browns are going to probably use him in a more effective way, closer to the line of scrimmage, allow him to flourish in what he's most comfortable with now that he has a number 1 receiver next to him, as instead of being forced those number 1 downfield targets. Right. So that all 4 of those names could absolutely jump up that list.
All right, first of all, you make a great point that players vote for their friends and don't even know, especially if it's an offensive lineman, as an example. They don't even know they don't even know if the guy played that week, but they vote each other in. But also, there's something arbitrary about which is the most important position. Obviously, quarterback is the most important position, but you're not going to have all quarterbacks ranked in the top 25. So what do you think most emphasis, without having that whole list in front of us, where should the emphasis be besides quarterback?
That's a great question. I think that you probably see too many names at the skill positions ranked higher there because those are the guys who get the most publicity. They're the ones who score the touchdowns. Like you said, the quarterbacks are throwing those touchdowns. But there should be offensive linemen are in such a scarcity in today's game in terms of really quality offensive linemen. I think that more and more teams are putting out from the college level to the pros really dominant defensive linemen who are understanding how to use long length those guys like Myles-Garrett, Khalil Mack, Von Miller across the NFL, and you don't have enough quality linemen that are able to combat those guys and give quarterbacks a lot of time. So in my opinion, the one that is consistently underrated offensive line that should always be higher, because the amount of skill and the amount of beating those guys take on an every snap basis is pretty wild. And I don't think the average fan understands that.
All right, help me out on this. You talk about the lineman as an example. If you get your quarterback, whether it's Baker Mayfield or somebody from some other team, and they are taught to unload the ball quickly, so it's a quick drop and a quick pass, sometimes as long as he stays clean and doesn't have his pants dirty and doesn't take hits or take sacks, sometimes the rating of that offensive lineman may go up when it may not be deserved.
That's a great point. And one of the things that some of the statistic collection sites, such as Pro Football Focus and the likes of Sports Info Solutions, they're really trying to quantify. And ESPN's doing their own win-loss metric between offensive linemen and saying, we're going to study each offensive lineman on an individual basis and look at whether he won or lost his matchup against a certain player he's going up against. So you're right. There are times where, for example, Chris Hubbard at right tackle could just get blown past, but Baker Mayfield's able to step up, slide out of the pocket, and nothing comes of it. It's not a sack. It may be a pressure that is recorded as a statistic, but it's not a sack. And sometimes those metrics are tough to quantify. So you're right. The scheme plays into it. How the coaches, such as Freddie Kitchens, did a fantastic job in the second half of last year, giving his tight ends and running backs more help for his tackles that were struggling. It all ties in together, and usually it's going to say the best offenses in the NFL are going to have the best offensive lines, because the scheme ties up with the blocking that's going on effectively and the ball's coming out fast. So it's a collection. I think when you look at offensive line and sack statistics across the league, you have to say how much of it is on the quarterback, how much of it is on the playmaker or the play caller, and then how much of it is on the offensive line. There's a real balance that has to happen there, and if you just look at one stat and try to blame the offensive line, that's a dangerous thing.
Jake Burns is here from cleveland.com. He's the film room correspondent. All right, there's a whole bunch of reasons I want this season to get underway, not the least of which is we can get rid of these rankings, because as far as I'm concerned, once the first ball is snapped or kicked off, they don't mean anything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think that, like, I tried to rank the Browns and the rest of the AFC North and all different tiers of positions, and it's like, I feel like when I added all of those things up, the Browns have the best roster on paper. If you add up and tally points, if you get a 4-point total for first place, third for second, all the way down the line, and you add those up. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's going to be a little bit of skill and a little bit of luck too, Les. Like, it's going to be, the Browns have had a really clean bill of health the past, at least in 2018, where they stayed really healthy. They kept most of their primary players healthy all year. You just don't know. Some teams get depleted by injuries. If you look at the Bengals last year, they lost numerous players along the offensive line. Then they lost Andy Dalton, and then they lost A.J. Green. It's just like, you have to hope that your team stays healthy. Sometimes you play teams at the right time of year. It's a lot of things that go into this, and it's not just which teams look better on paper. It's which teams are healthy at the right time of year, are clicking on the highest cylinder at the right time of year when they're playing somebody else, and then you sort of look at that 16-game sample size and say, these are the best teams that came out of it. But it's not always the most talented team on paper, because we spend 6-7 months talking about it, and then it changes, like you said, when the first ball snapped.
Yeah, it's a war of attrition, and you got to just hang in there, and the longer you do, or the more you can stay away from the injuries, the better off you're going to be. Let's take a look again at you talked about the top 100 players. 4 of the Browns are on the list. Odell Beckham, 23rd. Why so low?
Well, I think it's because of the injury history of late. I think he's had a couple seasons here. 2017, he missed some time with injury, and then he missed the last 4 games of 2018. And something we're going to talk about here in a little bit, Les, is he is not, or was not, I should say was, playing with the best quarterback that could accentuate his skill set. So I think the league really respects him to be inside the top 25, but when you consider the injuries he's dealt with the last 2 years that held him out of 4 games last year, multiple games in 2017 to begin the year. If you recall, he hurt his ankle in Cleveland Browns, their First Energy Stadium there in 2017 preseason. You add those things up, and the quarterback that he was trying to combat, it means that he's probably not as respected as he could be, and why some people think he's a favorite to break out and lead multiple wide receiver categories.
All right,
this year.
so you go to NFL Network's 49th best top player is Myles-Garrett, and then you come back with the quarterback in Baker Mayfield at 50th. So they're 49th and 50th. Is Are they bunched up about where they should be?
I feel like Myles is pretty fair going into year 3. He had a pretty strong rookie season when he came back from that injury, and then had a very strong second year. He kind of faded down the stretch, I thought, when they were playing him too many snaps. But I do feel like he's a top 50 player, and he's one that has potential, if he has an 18 to 20 sack year, to jump into the top 15 going into next year. Now, Baker Mayfield probably a little higher on this list than I thought he would come in after just his rookie season. But I think what's going on there is people are evaluating his rookie year, saying he had to overcome the loss of a head coach and offensive coordinator, and only played in 13 and a half games, and didn't have many reps in preseason and camp with the first team, but was still able to set the single season touchdown mark. I think people are very high on coordinator, head coach, and then obviously he's going to have a much more explosive group of weapons around him. So I think there's a little bit of forecasting and people looking at the right statistics from his rookie year. But it's nice for Browns fans to have a quarterback who's respected across the league like this. No
question about it. The only problem is there may be a book on him now that they didn't have last year. Now they could spend the offseason working on it. So we'll see how it plays in when he has to combat that himself and maybe change some of his ways instead of what he did last year. So that'll be an interesting part. When we get back, we're going to find out, you alluded to the quarterback situation with Odell Beckham last year. That, of course, Eli Manning. We're going to check out whether Eli held him back or not, which is why Beckham might be rated as the 23rd best player by NFL Network. Northfield Park is your home for live and simulcast racing. Catch the excitement of harness racing. That's live racing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday evening. Post time 6 p.m. Open early every day for simulcast action. The Bud Light patio parties go on every Friday through September. Stop by the outdoor patios every Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. and enjoy the beer specials, the outdoor grilling, live racing, and a chance to win some great prizes, including cold, hard cash. Free admission, free parking every day. That's at Northfield Park. We'll come back in a moment. Jake Burns is with us from cleveland.com, the film room correspondent. More Sports and Les-Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
No other company or product can match the features, benefits, and warranty of an authentic Nature Stone floor.
We had a horrible storm that flooded our basement.
We had to take out that nasty moldy carpet.
And we never want to have to go through that again. That's when we called Nature Stone.
And with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, you will never have to replace your basement flooring again. Get Nature Stone installed by the end of July and save up to 50%. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor, wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Time for a How Come Quickie. How come if you cannot drink and drive, they sell plenty of beer at gas stations? Always wondered that. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Jake Burns is with us, cleveland.com film room correspondent. Jake, could you explain that? How you can sell beer at gas stations, but you're not supposed to drive and drink?
That's a true paradox right there.
Yeah.
I cannot.
Which makes it a good How Come Quickie. All right, Jake Burns is with us. Jake, you alluded to it, and we've talked about it, and Odell Beckham has talked about it. Although, for one, I just hope he stops worrying about Detroit. About New York, rather. Nobody here cares about New York, and he should be made aware of that. But how did, if Eli Manning in fact held him back, how did he hold him back?
Well, it's a topic I didn't want to keep hashing out either necessarily, but I do think when you're looking at what he can become as a as a factor in this Browns offense, you do have to look at where he was restricted last year. So I had some statistics I put in that article, which said that Beckham's throwing the ball 20 yards downfield, where a guy like him is explosive, fast, in and out of cuts, can be most effective. That's where Eli really held him back. And this is not to knock Eli Manning as a player. The guy has accomplished so many things in his career. He's got 2 Super Bowls under his belt. But as you age, the arm strength begins to diminish a little bit. And that's where Eli really struggled. He actually finished 40th out of 45 quarterbacks in adjusted completion percentage on balls thrown 20 yards downfield. So that's telling you not just to Beckham, but to all of his wide receivers, he's truly struggling to complete the ball deep downfield for a multitude of reasons, including inaccuracies and underthrows and things of that nature. And the Giants only pushed targets down to the field to Beckham of 20 yards or more, and a player of the caliber of receiver that he's ranked up. For example, Julio Jones of the Atlanta Falcons had 65 such targets last year. So you can see why there's an interesting, sort of lack of opportunity based on the skill of the player. And I think that is something that the Browns look at and they think that they can capitalize on, because Baker Mayfield was 5th in the league on balls thrown 20 yards downfield in terms of accuracy. And he was most effective as Beckham on the slant route, and the slant route is that one-step drive inside at a 45-degree angle, and Eli Manning didn't get him the ball on frame or in stride, but 50% of the time. So imagine that, Les. Only 50% of the time that he would be thrown targets was it on stride, meaning in his running motion or in his frame of body to be caught. And that's a problem for a wide receiver if you never know where the ball is going to arrive. Well, that's where Mayfield thrives. He was one of the best throwers of the slant route, and in terms of being on, he was a top 10 quarterback in the league in terms of accuracy based on where the ball arrives in the wide receiver's frame. So if you add up the deep targets, you add up the accuracy on those throws in terms of keeping it in an accurate window, you see where you could push, Beckham into the top 1 or 2 wide receivers in the league.
All right, so let's look at the big picture. Is it a case where Pat Shurmur, who did not coach Eli Manning when he won the Super Bowls, and Dave Gettleman, the GM, wasn't there either? So are they afraid to go up to Eli and say, look, it's time to reevaluate yourself, and we have to either move you or ask you to retire or find another place to go? Are they afraid of him? Because I would think you'd rather have Beckham than Eli at this particular moment.
I absolutely think that you would rather have Beckham as a premier player at his skill position. I'm not sure. It feels like if you talk to the people who are involved with the Giants, it's 2 years past the time they would have thought it's to move on from Eli. But I don't think that they've had the player there that they feel comfortable with. They've had Geno Smith, who really struggled. They had Davis Webb, who was not the player they hoped he would be. And now they've moved on to Daniel Jones. So maybe they start Eli this year, they feel it out, and they decide maybe that this is time to give Daniel Jones, the 6th overall pick, an opportunity to play. It just feels like they haven't adequately replaced him, Les. Like, I do think the time has come and gone. It is clearly an issue for Eli to be a top-flight quarterback in the league, and the Giants have just sort of missed their window of opportunity to comfortably move on. Now it's just a lingering problem, one in which became such a problem with Odell Beckham last year that he couldn't tolerate it anymore, being underthrown, under-targeted in the certain situations on the field, and he could see where that frustration boiled over. I just think he was ready for a new quarterback, a new situation, and I think the right situation is here in Cleveland.
All right, going down the road here, and again, I mentioned I don't care about New York here, but does a guy like Eli Manning with those 2 Super Bowl rings, does he earn the right to call the shots and when it's over, even if I don't want to say he's embarrassing himself, but he's certainly a shell of what he was in those 2 times that he won Super Bowls. Has he earned the right in New York to be the man still?
I mean, I respect Eli Manning like crazy. I'm not sure if he's earned the right to do any of those things. I mean, it seems like other than Tom Brady, who continues to just play at an elite level, Drew Brees, these guys who age like fine wine and continue to compete, Phillip Rivers at an elite level, if the play diminishes like we've seen from Eli over the last 3 years, most of the time those franchises cut bait with those players, whether it was Brett Favre, to the point where it got there with Dan Marino that he retired. It's just like, it just feels like this thing has lingered farther on than it should have been lingering. And I'm not sure to answer that question, Les. I do think he probably has earned the right of when to hang him up, but the Giants as a franchise have just sort of allowed him to hang around and continue to be a part of things. And it almost, I think it caused a front office change a few years back.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And now that I think about it, Bill Belichick invented it when they came up with diminished skills. That's what he was aiming at, so we wouldn't be stuck with Bernie.
Yeah, absolutely. I recall that being a hot, I was a young kid at that time, but I've read about it as much as I can read about it from guys who went through it at that time. But that was a hot button topic in Cleveland, and rightfully so. They were looking for, how do you improve your football team against the diminishing skill of age of a quarterback? Now, in the modern age, with how they're protecting quarterbacks, you can see guys who are playing into their 40s and playing extremely well.
At a high
And that's
level.
the hope, is exactly that you hope you have with somebody like Baker Mayfield for the Browns, is you have a guy who can play. He's only 24, can play the next 15 years until he approaches 40, but it cannot be in the way that Eli Manning is playing and being a real obvious problem within your offense.
All right, we're halfway through. With us is Jake Burns, Cleveland.com's film room correspondent, giving us some inside information. When we'll come back in a moment, the Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame will open its doors to 6 new candidates, or 6 new inductees, and that'll be on Wednesday, September 18th at Landerhaven. Otis Chapman from racquetball, John Malloy hockey, Tony Miller, a couple of sports, Tom Lucci from in tennis. Urban Meyer qualifies as a resident of Ashtabula County, one of the 5 counties in the area, and Rob Moss from golf. Tickets are available at 216-241-1919. That's 216-241-1919. Or you can log on to admin@clevelandsportshall.com. That'll be a great night, Wednesday, September 18th. And that'll be at Landerhaven. 216-575-0403. Jake will continue on with us. When we come back, we'll talk about David Njoku. If he turns out to be as good as we expect, that they'll need even more balls than they thought they would need, with all the big potential offensive skill position players. And that we'll come back and check that out with Jake when we get back. 216-575-0403. More Sports and Les Levine exclusively on cleveland.com.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family cool this summer,
let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant, whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at 440-449-HEAT.
Just to, do the best I can do, be the best I can be the best tight end I can be. And if I do that, I think I'll be okay.
Where did you feel you needed to improve?
Everything, really, I didn't master anything yet. So I figured, work on the run blocking, pass blocking, catching, route running, all the above.
And how do you fit into this offense and this scheme when all the attention so far is going to OBJ, Jarvis? What about David?
That's a funny question. So yeah, I just control what I can control. I just, be the best I can be, like I said, and let everything else take care of itself.
What's it like, though, looking out there? You're looking to your right or your left, and you see 80, you see 13. And
it's very exciting. They're tremendous athletes. Great route runners, great receivers. So I'm so ecstatic just to have them, by my side. It makes me really excited.
What do you have to do to have the kind of season that you want to have, and what kind of season do you want to have this year?
Say that first question again.
What do you need to do to have the kind of season that you want?
What do I need to do? I need to control what I can control. Control on what I do, which is being a tight end, blocking, catching, running routes and everything that I do. And if I do that to the best of my ability, I think we'll have.
I think the biggest thing coming into the camp in the first place was trying to find some consistency with David in really every aspect of his game. And I think probably he's had days where it was better. He's had days where it's kind of the ebb and flow that kind of he's maybe experienced some in the past. I do think, and he and I had a discussion this morning, I think he's ascending in terms of what he's doing. I think it's a big thing, and especially start with the passing game for him. Just like you look around the league and a lot of the tight ends that are really having great success, or the things that really start to show up is when guys play with a quarterback, because there's so many different little nuances and things that happen in the areas of the field they work. So I think the more that he and Baker work together, the better off that relationship will be. And I think you can see some of that starting to show up. The big thing for him is, and at this stage will always be, becoming a complete player. I think he has shown some signs in the running game. There's nothing we're doing that he can't do. I believe that 100%. And he's got to want to do it. I got to be able to get him there, and we're working together to try to get it done. But I do think he's got the ability to ascend, but he's got to cut the dips out.
Well, there you have it, David Njoku, and then John Lilly, who is the tight ends coach. Jake Burns is with us from cleveland.com. Hey, Jake, when you think about it, there's so many weapons offensively. The tight end, Njoku, is way down the list, and then you realize he can be spectacular also, in addition to his duties as just a blocking tight end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you sort of look at, and the question was asked to David there, when you look at who the weapons are in this offense, it's overwhelming between Jarvis-Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. and what Rashard Higgins is really becoming late last year into this year. It's carrying over, and then you mix in Antonio Callaway too, and then the two running backs, maybe three running backs if you include Duke Johnson, Kareem Hunt, and Nick Chubb. The Browns have a top three, if not the best skill position group in terms of just sheer talent in the NFL. It's overwhelming, and Njoku is kind of the guy that can become forgotten there. I think people forget that he took a really good stride from 2017 to 2018, caught more of the targets that were thrown his way, had 56 catches, 639 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he had a lot better production in terms of the second half of the year, avoiding drops down the field. So I think it's going to be interesting sort of how they're able to use him, continue to take his game to the next level, because I think there are parts of his game that have really taken off in terms of sheer route running ability. But like David said, and the coaches alluded to, he has to be able to run block when asked to run block and not be a problem, because if they want him to be a 3-down tight end, he has to be able to provide those things on occasion. Modern NFL, you want your tight end out running routes because David's great at that, but he has to be able to block in zone and gap schemes when they ask him to do those things.
Jake, put yourself in the shoes of a defensive coordinator on any average given week, if there is such a thing as an average given week. What do you in basketball, you always say, make a guy like LeBron, make him shoot a 3. That's not that he can't do that, but that's what you aim to do. What do you think the opposing defensive coordinator, he's going to look at the Brown situation. He's got to double Beckham, I assume. Sometimes he's got to double somebody else, maybe Jarvis-Landry. But what do you think the defensive coordinator is going to have to do to make his game plan work? What are the stats supposed to look like?
Yeah. So it depends on how they. I mean, this is a lame answer, but it's how your defense is. If you have a cornerback who you feel is good enough to at least play Odell Beckham decently one-on-one, then you would probably try to send help coverage to somebody like Jarvis-Landry, or send bracket coverage over toward Higgins, who could be a really good player, or if you have weaker linebackers, you would try to help out against David Njoku, or help out sending an extra player into the box against the run game. If you're speaking in general, I do think you have to shade coverage to Odell Beckham. That's a big reason the Browns went out and got him, because you need to be able to devote 2, occasionally 3 defenders, including a linebacker in zone coverage, to take away all of the areas in which he can get the football on the field. You're going to need to try to box Baker Mayfield into the pocket. It's easier said than done, but try to keep him throwing out of the pocket and not doing what he does well when he gets out of the pocket and throws on the run. It's a big part of his game. Try to box him in, and then just sort of stay consistent as you can against the likes of Landry in the slot, or the likes of Higgins down the sideline on the opposite side, or Callaway running deep routes too. But I'm telling you, it's overwhelming. You really have to hope that the Browns just don't figure it out, just don't have a way to put it all together, because they can attack with the group they have that goes 8 deep in terms of really good football players. And that's not to forget the second tight end, Demetrius Harris, who I think is a nice addition out of Kansas City. He can be a really nice pass catcher, 6'8", big guy. It's an overwhelming group. There's a reason the NFL has fallen in love with the Browns, because they see the talent, and it's going to be challenging. Like, the defensive coordinator is going to have to know that there are going to be, any given snap, 3 advantages between a one-on-one matchup that the Browns are going to have. They're going to have better play.
That doesn't even account for what happens after the 8th week of the season and the addition the Browns should get if all goes well. I just picture Freddie Kitchen like a mad scientist, coming up with all these different things. He's got the Odell package, he's got the Landry package, he's got all kinds of packages to play with, and I think it's a dream for an offensive coordinator, let alone a head coach.
It absolutely is. Sure. I mean, because Freddie's kind of the multiple roles there. He's going to be calling plays, but you have Todd Monken, who loves to create explosive plays downfield. Freddie did a great job of getting those plays downfield last year, but sort of mitigating and helping his own line. So the pairing of those two should be a really effective pairing between both of them. But yeah, I think they just don't need to overthink it. Run the schemes that you feel comfortable with, and trust these athletes that you have to be able to get open against coverage. I don't think you need to really be too aggressive and trying to target any one player. Run the schemes you have. Once you feel how defenses are trying to cover it, then adjust how often you want to go to certain players. And just, like I said, trust that you got the guys you have, the guys you're paying good money to, the guys you went out and traded for are going to get open against coverage, and the quarterback that you believe in is going to get them the football. You overthink it, you could do too much. Just let those athletes play.
Bud Shaw will join us tomorrow night on More Sports and Les Levine. Sokolowski's University Inn joins us every night. They've done it for some 25 years now. Located in Tremont, take the Abbey Avenue exit right out of downtown Cleveland. First bridge, swing under the bridge. That's where you're going to find it, as it was established in that same location back in 1923. Sokolowski's University Inn, the winner of the James Beard Foundation Award about 3 or 4 years ago. Only 5 restaurants in the country get it each and every year. Sokolowski's the only one from the Cleveland area to ever win it. It's Cleveland's oldest family-owned and operated restaurant, 11 to 3 Monday through Friday for lunch, and Friday and Saturday nights for dinner, starting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. When we come back, Jake Burns and I will take a look. We'll break down the linebackers, which some people would say is a weakness with the Browns. We'll find out what Jake has to say about that and more when we return. More Sports and Les Levine exclusively on cleveland.com.
Company or product can match the features, benefits, and warranty of an authentic Nature Stone floor.
I had an epoxy-based sand paint on my floor that deteriorated, and that's why I called Nature Stone.
Why paint? It's expensive, it's ugly, and it doesn't last. Nature Stone is always affordable. It's beautiful, and with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, you will never have to replace your garage floor again. Get Nature Stone installed by the end of July and save up to 50%. It's not just a floor, wow, it's Nature Stone.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The linebacker position is one that you must be physical at the point of attack, and obviously, just leading that and doing that by example is important for us as a football team overall, because it helps the offense as well in terms of getting their toughness going and getting them physical as well.
seemed like you guys did the tackling to the ground period today, and
yes,
he just seemed like he just came to life and was in on like 3 consecutive tackles. Was he in his element out there? Did he jump out in that period?
Yeah, he did. He stood out. I haven't watched the tape yet, but he definitely stood out. And I think as a football team, everyone gets excited when we, go live for a play or 3 plays or whatever coach might deem at that point in time. Yes.
What have you thought of, Schobert in the middle for you guys? Now you've kind of gotten to know him a little bit, kind of practiced with him a little bit.
Yeah, he's a smart player. He can orchestrate a lot of different things for us in terms of checks, getting us in line, making the adjustment, all those kind of things. So from that standpoint, obviously he's played a number of years in the league, and that has helped his progression. And he's picking up the system, and he's doing a good job with communicating to his teammates and understanding what his role in the defense is going to be for this season.
Coach, the missed tackle stats was obviously not what the Browns wanted last year.
Yeah, sure.
How much of a priority is that then for you?
That's always a priority for us coming in as a defense. Every great defense that I've been involved with, they've been excellent tacklers, excellent tackling football teams. When you look at the playoffs, year in and year out, those teams that are still playing in January into February, those defenses are physical and they can also tackle. So we're going to work on that every day, whether we're in full pads or just helmets. We're going to work a form of tackling, taking angles to the ball, being physical at the point of attack, shooting our hands, wrapping, taking them to the ground, things of that nature. We're going to work those fundamentals every single day, and angles to the ball, most importantly.
There you have it, Al Holcomb, who is the linebacker coach for the Cleveland Browns. And if he does really well, we'll do a segment called Holcomb Quickies, I think. We'll see how that works. Let's check back in. We'll find out what's going on with Jake Burns. Jake, you've made it through so far. You haven't gotten hurt. You haven't got injured. It's a war of attrition here.
I'm lucky.
Yeah, you are lucky. All right, so most people would say the weakest area on this Browns team would be the linebackers. Agree or disagree?
If you're looking defensively, I think it's the spot that has the most mystery surrounding it. Yep.
All right, so
yeah,
mack-Wilson said something the other day that John Dorsey didn't draft him and Takitaki to sit on the bench or something to those words. Was he right on that?
Well, I think he certainly drafted him to put pressure on the 2 guys who are entrenched as starters. Christian-Kirksey is coming back from 2 really rough years in terms of performance and coming off an injury that cost him the back half of last year. Joe-Schobert had a Pro Bowl year in 2017, and then 2018 had a little issue there with a hamstring injury and had an unfortunate season in terms of defending the run game. Never really got it going in that department. And he had issues tackling, leading the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus, in missed tackles. So I do think they drafted Takitaki to be the future Mike linebacker, and they drafted, mack-Wilson there to be the will linebacker of the future. I think what'll be interesting is, the Browns will, they're going to give Schobert and Kirksey every chance to prove themselves. And if Schobert is able to prove himself and have a blow-up year, which is very possible, I think he's a very good football player, the Browns will do everything they can to keep him. The same with Christian-Kirksey, who they've had around for a long time. I know Kirksey and Joel Bitonio are 2 of the longest tenure Browns. So, the question is fair. And I think the Browns said, hey, we want to improve our special teams, so we're going to draft some young linebackers here who can contribute on those special teams. But we also think these guys could be long-term players for us. And we believe in what's Sione-Takitaki, and we believe what mack-Wilson can bring to those 2 positions.
Let's go back to that list of linebackers currently on the roster and take a look at something that would have been great. You got Joe-Schobert and Genard-Avery, Mack-Wilson, Willie Harvey, Anthony Stubbs, Christian-Kirksey, Sione-Takitaki, Adarius Taylor, and Ray Armstrong and Dedrick Young II. Wouldn't it have been interesting if if Takitaki's parents named him Ray? Ray Takitaki. Yeah.
Would have been pretty repetitive.
Maybe so. What's your early analysis of looking at those 2 rookies in Takitaki and Mack-Wilson? Have they shown you anything, or is it way too early?
It's a little too early, but they've thudded some guys up in practice. A couple days ago, Dontrell Hilliard took off on a leap over some players down at the line of scrimmage, and Mack-Wilson caught him in the air and punished him. He's a hitter. He was a hitter at Alabama. It's just a matter of how consistently can he read things that are going on in front of him and be in the right position to make those tackles. If he can process things quickly, especially when we watch him through the preseason and we get a better angle on things that are going on at the First Energy Stadium Orange and Brown scrimmage this Saturday, those guys have the potential. Takitaki is a guy who plays abundantly fast and aggressive. He's caused a little bit of a headache with some of the veterans in the non-padded practices, going a little bit too aggressively in run period drills. And then just yesterday's practice, Stump Mitchell was a little upset with how Takitaki brought somebody to the ground. He thought a little late in the drill, late in the 11-on-11 period. Look, you need your linebackers to be aggressive players. Takitaki and Wilson are out to make a name for themselves and out to show the Browns, you drafted me here to play linebacker. I'm not going to settle for sitting on the bench. And that, the pressure that those guys are putting on, the effort that they're showing is only going to make Schobert and Kirksey better. And if those two, Schobert and Kirksey, don't want to respond to that challenge and don't take their game to another level, there's two young, eager guys ready to step in.
Are there any players other than quarterbacks on the roster who could imitate Trevor Bauer and take the ball from midfield and throw it through the uprights?
I mean, I'm going to be honest. If there's one player on the roster that would do it, who would get really frustrated and chuck a football 14 rows into the stands, it probably would be Baker Mayfield, right?
Right. I assume the quarterbacks could do it. I'm just wondering about the other players. All right, we showed the linebackers and the depth, and there's some names that people aren't very familiar with. Do you think they're going to pick up some people once the exhibition games start? Somebody will come available, and that list that we just show you will be outdated?
I don't think they will touch anything with the linebackers. I think they really like the group that they have there with the linebackers in terms of the first two, the veteran two who are behind the first two are Dallas Taylor, who will place them. When the Browns do go three linebackers, he's the Sam. And don't forget they signed him out of Tampa Bay, and he was their special teams captain in 2018. He'll be a big part of things there. Ray Armstrong's probably fighting for his life on the roster as maybe the sixth guy they keep. But they like those two young guys too, Takitaki and Mack-Wilson. And they like Willie Harvey too, the undrafted free agent they signed out of Iowa State. So I don't think that group changes much. If I had to guess, two groups that could change with cut time would be the defensive line on the interior, if somebody becomes available at the interior of that line, and then there's a little bit of a chance they could look to add a third tight end, but I don't know if that'll happen.
All right, when we get back, we got one more segment to go. We'll check out some How Come Quickies and some other mail that we've gotten. And Jake Burns will continue with us through the end of the program. You can catch the excitement of live harness racing, Northfield Park. That's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday nights. And, of course, the post time for that is 6 p.m., open early every day for simulcast action. The weekly Sunday contest, top prize $500 in cash. And a lot of things happening in the month of August, including the $400,000 Milstein Memorial and the $50,000 Myron Charna President's Pace. It all comes your way at Northfield Park, where it's free admission, free parking every day. We'll come on back, and one more time, More Sports and Les-Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
No other company or product can match the features, benefits, and warranty of an authentic Nature Stone floor.
We had a horrible storm that flooded our basement.
We had to take out that nasty moldy carpet.
And we never want to have to go through that again. That's when we called Nature Stone.
And with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, you will never have to replace your basement flooring again. Get Nature Stone installed by the end of July and save up to 50%. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor, wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program has been recognizing role model students and teachers since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Supporting Education. There, you can nominate students in kindergarten through 12th grade as academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible for the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Well, tomorrow night, Bud Shaw will join us from WKYC.com and the D-Man, Dennis Maniloff, on Thursday night. You see us live from 6 until 7, Monday through Friday. And you can archive us any other time and go back and find some old shows if you'd like to do that. And you can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/more-sports-and-les-levine, with new content posted each and every day. Let's take a look at this date in Les Levine history. You saw that Ron Hansen pulled off an unassisted triple play for Washington against the Indians. On July 30th, 1977, Les pulls off an unassisted triple play. It was actually a very easy thing to do, seeing as there was one out at the time. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. A couple of How Come quickies. Big Ed says, how come the person who invests your money is called a broker? Ed, you didn't think I'd do this second one, did you? Ed, come on. It's good, but you know I can't do it. John Patrick checks in today. How come when I go formal, I insist that my tuxedo pants just touch the top of my sandals? Looks like he's a big party goer. Mr. Gullible is out traveling on his baseball tour. He corrected me. I said he's been to 35 ballparks. He corrected me and said 45. Wow, it's pretty good. Jake Burns is with us, cleveland.com, in the film room. He's the film room correspondent. You go back in and watch films after we sign off here?
Yeah, actually, I will. Ironically enough, I'm cutting up some stuff for Joe-Schobert that we're going to write for tomorrow.
All right, how do you do that? Let's give away a trade secret. You got Joe-Schobert. Have you interviewed him already?
I've got some stuff from Joe about his angle this time of year, and
is it back and forth with him, or is it pretty much your own doing?
It can be mostly my own doing, some stuff I see on film, or I can get a hold of Joe, and Joe can give me some quotes. I've got some stuff from Greg Robinson for something I'm doing with Greg later on in the week too. But like with Joe, it's just his ability to create turnovers. So I go and find his recent ability to create those turnovers and kind of point out how it's a big part of the defense's success. But yeah, I mean, it's just finding something on film. I use a software program to cut it up and cut it into little small pieces and snippets to teach somebody something. It takes a little bit of time, but I think at the end of the day, if we're teaching somebody something about these players, it helps.
Jake, other than the obvious quarterbacks who get, Baker Mayfield gets interviewed every day, and Odell Beckham so far, and a lot of popular guys, which players surprise you as to what a great interview they are, or stories that they have to tell that maybe the average fan would be surprised to hear that player is one who could do that the best?
I was really impressed with just Larry Ogunjobi's ability to give thoughtful answers to not just questions about himself or questions about football, but his teammates and sort of aspects of life that are going on around him. I think he's been a really impressive player, a really impressive person, and he's definitely been higher. I shouldn't say high. He's been very open to having discussions with me. I've had him on a podcast that I run personally, and he's given very insightful answers. And, sometimes people get that misconception that offensive and defensive linemen are sort of those big uglies that don't want to talk all the time. But Larry and even Myles, I haven't had a chance to talk one-on-one with Myles, but I mean, that guy's so, interesting with his poetry passion and his anime passion and different things that he's out there, trying to do in the Cleveland community. Is just an awesome person. And I think, sometimes those guys get misconstrued. So Larry's been really cool to talk to on several occasions.
So some of the time the fans only see the guy in their helmet. They don't see the face. They just see the number and the name on the back, and that's all they know about the guy for the most part. So it's good that these guys get out there and give you something else to think about when you see the player actually play the game.
Absolutely. I think that is the truth, that we just see a helmet and a number, like you said there, Les, and we forget these guys are normal humans with families and kids and wives, and they have personal interests that are they don't care just about football. Some do, but some have other interests that are important to them. And, sometimes it's just we continue to put these guys on a pedestal sometimes, or we sometimes knock them and forget that they have feelings and they're people too. So when they take the time out of their busy lives and the grind that it is playing in the NFL to give us thoughtful, interesting answers and help us do our job, it definitely means something to us. And it is certainly, in my first real full training camp, it's meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and it really means a lot to them if they show another side to it, and people might just be interested to hear all those things. Jake, tremendous job tonight. Thank you so much. I hope we can get you to continue to do this.
Yeah, my pleasure, Les. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks, Jake. Jake Burns, cleveland.com film room correspondent. All right, that'll do it for us. We've got Bud Shaw tomorrow night, And then the D-man, Dennis Maniloff, he will be here on Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow night, and I've got a whole bunch of radio gigs that I'll point out, starting with next Thursday and Friday. That'll be next week from 10 until 2. That's on 92.3 The Fan. I'll see you here, right here tomorrow night. Of all the shows I've ever done, this was the most recent.